Good evening, everybody. I'm asked to give this presentation of workflow abroad. This was asked to me already last year during NSH, where I was attending, and I agreed upon giving this presentation, and I gave this presentation a little bit of it already once in Europe already. So that's for your information. Well, first I will present myself. I'm Luc Nedermans. I'm a technician at the Erasmus University Hospital in Rotterdam. It's one of the largest pathology hospitals in the Netherlands. And I've recently went to work for Sakura Fintech Europe as an application specialist. It's a little bit of bad weather over here, so it can be that you will not hear me. I'm also a member of the Dutch pathology group. We call it the VAP, Vereniging Analysten Pathologie, and we have a subgroup in it. It's just for the histology technicians. It's just similar to the NSH, only much smaller. And but I want to let you know. Yeah. So I'm going to talk mostly about histology in Europe, with a special focus on the Netherlands. And as you might know, the Netherlands is the small country with its main capital, Amsterdam. Some people will be arriving there when they visit Europe. It's the big airport Schiphol. It's just a small country, and we're most famous for our tulips and the windmills. And we are in Western Europe. Go on, when patients come to an hospital, they come to the clinician. Most of the time the clinician takes a biopsy, and we do some pathological research, we give a diagnosis, and we go back to the clinician. And what's pathological research? Well, we always divided it in some groups. First we registrate the biopsy, when we check all the dates of the birth date of the patient and his patient recognition number and names and so forth. Then we go on to the processing, where the biopsy will be processed throughout the pathology lab. And after that, our pathologist makes a nice report, and that report goes back. What's the important thing of the pathology labs is the registration, processing, and reporting, of course. So, how was the situation during the conventional processing? Well, the tissue arrived largely in batches, fixed or unfixed, and it was cut up in batches. The tissue processing occurred overnight in relatively long programs, and these batches resulted in a batch-wise organization of the activities during the day, like the embedding and the cutting and the mounting, etc. In short, the current organization, or the real organization, was around batch work and leads to inefficient use of the human resource. So we did a time measurement during the conventional use, and this is a lot of graphics, but what you can really see is when the mouse is coming, yes, with this pink area. This is the cutting, especially during the morning. It's something during the afternoon, but that's not much. That's more the reworks and the extra calls from the pathologist. There was a lot of work in the morning, and it's one big peak around the day, but a lot of activities as well on the lab. There were some changes in healthcare, as you will all know. There's an increasing number of specimens due to the modern healthcare. There are increasing number of blocks per specimen. There are some protocols adjusted. For instance, the prostate, we need to cut it entirely, and we have to put it entirely in blocks and cut all those blocks, and it will give you 60 to 80 blocks at least. And we have a decreasing number of skilled technicians. The schools are, we have a little problems in Holland and as well in the rest of Europe. The young guys really like computers and stuff like that, and they don't want to work with their hands that much anymore, and that was a big number. So we have a decreasing number of skilled technicians. According to that, we have also an increasing number pressure from the clinical department and patients. They want a diagnosis rapidly, and not only when we go to the clinician, he says, well, come back in 2 weeks and we will give you a diagnosis. And they say, well, I can go to another hospital and they will give me the results in 2 or 3 days. So what we saw was an increasing amount of blocks during the years and a decreasing amount of technicians. What we see in this stat is in 2008, we see an increase in the number of staff, but there were some laboratory assistants started to work when they are counted in this number. So what we do to improve this process. We went over some things and we came to the Lean and the Six Sigma procedures. And the Lean is all about speed, and the Six Sigma has to do everything with qualities. Lean is mostly from the Toyota Motor Production Company, and they have really put their workload in a much easy way. And how do we do this? We couple the methodology with the technology. So the Lean production manufacturing, we try to reduce the waste because you have a lot of waste inside your lab, and not the waste of the silene, but the waste of overproducing and waiting times, but I will come to that later. And we have to improve our workflow because normally it came in a batch, you all know it, 10 o'clock in the morning, one big bag, and maybe at 3 o'clock in the evening. Again, some stuff at your lab, and then you have to do everything again. So we try to work with that, and what we really loved was the implemented smart automation instruments, and especially the Express and AutoTEC, which took over the embedding, the AutoTEC, and the Express will give you the processing time, but I will come to that as well. So what we need to do first is understanding Lean. There is a Lean philosophy, and that's not all speed, but it's produce what is needed, when it's needed, and specified by the customer, and with the minimum amount of materials. And we try to provide an effective development product and service delivery system. And this is not that you do once and then you're finished. It's like this, it's a cycle, and you have to continuous process improve yourself and, well, streamline your process as well. There are 5 key principles of Lean, so I will go over it. It's define value add and non-value add. You have to map your value stream, establish of process flow and takt time, and shift from push to pull system. A push and pull system is like you have to ask, can I get some biopsy from your registration desk? Otherwise, then they say, well, we have another plate with biopsies for you, and strive for perfection, 0 defects, and that's what we all like. We don't want to make any mistakes on our labs. And this is also from the Toyota way. The 4 P's, they say, it's philosophy, the process, the people and partners, and then the problem solving. So when we go to the types of waste, there are a lot of wastes, and we will go over them one by one. Waste of waiting. It's a waste to stay in place of the expectation of an event, and that includes waiting for tests or people or results. Another type of waste is the waste of defects. When you have something done wrong and you have to do it again, it was a waste. There is always unnecessary motion on your lab when you look at your lab, and then you see there's a staining machine over there, and there's some microtomes over here, and, well, there are grossing benches at the other side, and try to place them in a structured way according to the process. And some unnecessary convenience for transporting or rearranging items. You always see it on the lab, somebody is shoving his stuff all around the lab and not on the place that it should like to be. And there's the waste of the overproduction. When you just need one block, just make one block and don't make two blocks. As one pathologist of mine always said, it's just to cover my ass, and I will make another block. There's also the waste of overprocessing. That's when you do something more than your customer perceives, and it's not adding value to your product. And you can put your we call it the magazine, full with stuff, but if you don't use it, it takes room, and room is money. So that's why it's not good to have it over there. And then the most important one, I always think, is the waste of unused employee creativity. Your staff has a lot of ideas because they have skills and they are really good at what they do, so don't waste one of your employees. And then we go to improve our workflow, and we always try to do it with on facts and data. So collect as much data as possible for your specimen, the amount of cassettes, your lead times, your total times, and map your process around. And I will show you how we did it. So try to, as I said, to have it on facts and data. And this is what you see. This is the production, what we have done in the recent years, and you always see an increase. We had an increase every year of about 10 to 12%, and every year it kept growing and growing. And you have to be prepared, so always check the facts that you have. So we made a value stream map, and it's really important. You have a process step, you have process time, and in between there was always some waiting time. And this is how we had it on our lab. The biopsies came in, they were transported to the pathology, we registered them, controlled, and put stickers on them, controlled and described them. And as you hear, we did a lot of controls, a lot of control steps between, but that's to check because we don't want to do rework, as I said before. And the process is going on and on. But when you go over this, at the end, we authorized it, and because we were a university lab, we had some assistant pathologists, so that's why there is consulting and co-authorizations going on the lab. But that's, within our lab, we had to do it. So there are two different times we see, processing time and waiting time, and we will go on with the processing time. Because overnight you have the conventional processes, and it takes a lot of time. You have to do all these steps, and there's always some waiting before it goes on the processor, especially at night. And then the process is really long. So if you want to make some improvements, and you see the process is about 10 to 12 hours, and I always said, well, you need a little bit of an old-fashioned way, like we have with a rotary processor. I know some guys still using them, and they're really working fine, but yeah. What I always say is, do you really want to stick to these old habits? Like Anthony from Leeuwenhoek was the guy who invented the microscope and came from Holland as well. That's why I added him in. But do you really want to stay to these old habits, or do you want to change? And then by creating a standardized continuous workflow, removing bottlenecks and reducing waiting time, and especially the errors, and an increase same-day diagnosis, because your patients and your clinicians demand it from you. So that's why we went over to a continuous process with smart automation equipment, and where you can go back from 12-hour processing time to 1-hour processing time. And what we really like, and that's why it's called a continuous process, it's loadable every 20 minutes. And how did we do it? Well, there are some nice equipment from Sakura. You have the Express X50. It can contain about 50 cassettes per hour. It's loading every 40 minutes and contains 2 retorts and 1 loading station. And the big one, what I've worked with, is the Express, the big Express X120. It is capable of doing 120 cassettes an hour, and it's loadable every 15 minutes. And that's because of their 4 retorts. And I don't want to go over it all, how it's working. You can ask the Sakura guys. And what did we create to get to the continuous efficient workflow? Well, in Europe, and especially in the Netherlands, we are used to start at 7 o'clock in the morning, and at 5 o'clock in the evening everybody is willing to go home and really is going home. So, for instance, on a Monday morning, 8 o'clock, you start with the grossing. After grossing, you're going to do some processing. We had the Express, so it takes about 1 hour or 2 hours due to the program you chose. Then the embedding. After embedding, you go on with the microtomy. Then you have to stain it with your staining machine and then deliver it to the pathologist. So at about 11 o'clock, all the specimens that were grossed that morning at 8 o'clock already went to the pathologist. And 30 minutes later, or 15 minutes later, due to the program you have, you can start this whole process again. And then you're finished at 30 past 11. And this can go on and on and on and on. But then you will say, yeah, but you're going home at 5 o'clock in the evening. And it's true. So at 1:30, we aren't able to deliver it anymore to the pathologist. That doesn't mind. At 4 o'clock, at 2 o'clock, we are not able to stain it anymore, and so on and so on. And then we go to Tuesday morning, and then we can start the lab at 7 o'clock in the morning, just delivering already to the pathologist. And then we go on with staining and embedding, and then you'll see the process is going on and on and on. And this is how we created our continuous workflow on the lab, and this is the one that really, really helped us out. And did it have a lot of effects on the technicians and the pathologists? Well, the number of people needed for cutting, mounting, and staining was unchanged. And of course, this is true because you have the same amount of work that you're used to. The only difference is you're now doing it during the day, and not only in the morning where you was rushing, and when you came in and you know, already we have 700 bucks this morning, so we have to finish them, and then you need to push to get it off. So what I said already, continuous cutting and mounting, etc. during the day, but also continuous reporting of the pathologist is possible, and then you get the same day diagnose, what's so really important for our patients. And the other thing is the waiting time. Waiting time is time lost, and I was in a lab, and this is not in the Erasmus Hospital in Rotterdam, but I was on a lab, and they had the blocks waiting for the microtomy, and it could be in here for about 4 or 5 days. It would be way too long for us, but I wanted to show you because I think it's important. So you have to investigate where all the wastes are, and then get rid of all those wastes because we don't like it. So there are a lot of wastes in here. So maybe you can waiting on microtomy is a type of waste, and you can get rid of it. And how did we do this? There is a tool by Lean, and it's called the 5S tool. I don't bother you with the Japanese words, but I've put them in English. So it's standardize, sort, 7 order, shine, and sustain. And sustain is the most important one, of course. But it's really good to walk through your lab, sort everything out, set it in order, shine it, polish it, and then make a standardize for it, and then keep it this way. And that's when you have people that are moving the stuff around. Try this. And that's what we did with our inventory. We've put these little tags, and on there is also the amount that has to be in this closet for this stuff. So we had a lab technician that filled this closet because it was in the grossing room, and you don't want to get out of the grossing room and in and out and in and out. That's why we did it like this. Also want to do some error reduction, and this is the biopsy that came in. And we had some nice secretaries that were giving numbers and already making cassettes for us. And there were some problems with it. We made some mistakes. We took the wrong cassettes to the wrong patient. That's something you don't want, and that's why we came up with this rack where one patient is in one place. So we go now over the phases of Six Sigma. It's really nice to keep it aside of the Lean. It's defining, measuring, analyzing, improving, and in the end controlling on your lab. So define who is the customer, what is his needs. The measure, how is the process defined and how are the defects measured. And it's really important to measure your defects. You can learn from them, right? So on the NSH last year, a lab from Canada who measured their chatter in their GI biopsies, and they came that it was decreased after their measurements with about 10%, and that's really nice. So analyze what are the most important causes of the defects, improve, and how can causes of defects be eliminated, and what actions are needed to sustain the improvement, and that's also really important. So this is also an ongoing process. And again, you have to define who is your customer. And if you ask it on the lab, who is the customer of us, for who do we work for, everybody says it's for the patient. But in fact, it's not. In fact, we are working for the clinician because we report to the clinician and not to the patient. So that's always that you have to keep in mind. We are working for clinicians and not for the patients. At the end, we work for the patients, but we are reporting to the clinician. So we measured it. I'm sorry for this. This is in Dutch, but we measured the process, and this particular one is for the run-through times for the biopsies. So every step that I showed you in the value stream map, they have to put in the time when they began and when it was ended, and we did it for all the different numbers we have, and then we had made the data with this. And now I'm going to the analyzing part of this. With all the data, you can make nice graphics, and you see these red dots up in the air, and that's when, that's what you don't want. You want it to be around the equator and not that high. So we investigated all these red dots, and we tried to find solutions for all those problems that would occur. And then we have to find out how the causes of the defects could be eliminated. And for example, when we sorted and delivered to the pathologist, and when the pathologist was accepting it, well, we had somebody that took 16 days, 2 hours and 27 minutes. And that's what you don't want. You want it to be like this 2 hours and 40 minutes, or even less. And that's what we really liked, when it was less. So at the end, you have to, I think I'm going, no, this is the control part. So what we did at the end to sustain our improvement, we had the starting time of grossing. We just made it a little bit earlier. We asked to the hospital, and that's always difficult, especially when you're a big hospital like we were, to get all your specimens continuously coming into your lab, and you have to arrange it with the people who are getting the specimens and bringing it to you. Maybe they have a route, maybe 2 times, 3 times a day, and you have to get them to come to more to your lab, and that's not always possible. But we tried it, and in the end, we made it work. We had about 10 deliveries a day, so it was really nice. And what we also did was the close monitoring on defects like chatter and why is tissue not good processed, and the fixation, and it's always a little bit of problems that you have, but you really need to monitor them, and we try to do it. So it went really well. And this, again, what I said already, is an ongoing process. It's ongoing and ongoing. So you need to improve, and when you have improved, you're not finished. You have to define the status, and then go on. It has all to do with the quality. So, well, at the end, there are a lot of quality things going on. There are a lot of things influencing your quality, and this is a nice slide that I got somewhere. So you have to go over all these points when you are looking at your qualities within your labs, and so on. So I think I'm a little bit ahead in time, as I'm always a quick presenter. So we are already at the last slide. So if somebody has questions, do not hesitate to email me, or we can talk it over now. Like what I said, I'm a quick presenter. Maybe should have made some more slides. But are there any questions?
Thank you, Lou. We appreciate your time this morning. Just so everybody knows, it's actually about 7 o'clock, almost 8 o'clock in the evening there in the Netherlands where Luke is at. So he has already completed his workday and is giving us his time to present today, just to give you a description of how histology is done in Europe. And if you wouldn't mind, please go ahead and type your questions into the question box. And as you're doing so, I would like to talk about our highlighted product, and these are our TissueTech grossing tools, and they promote standardization, consistency, and ease of use. For rapid tissue processing, it's now becoming the norm to gross thin if you want to get your specimens processed in 1 to 2 hours. These tools allow you to gross thin in a consistent and standardized manner. So we just wanted to let you know that they are available, and if you need additional information, they can be found on our website at sakuraamericas.com. Our next slide is our upcoming webinar, and that is the advantages and disadvantages of a Lean and Six Sigma. It's going to be hosted after NSH on September 29th. We are going back to our standard times of 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and our presenter is Vincent Di Maleo, and there's an abstract. If you haven't already done so, please sign up on our website, and I'm sure this is going to be another great webinar. So I do have some questions for you, Luke, and the first question came in is can you explain about what you mean by defects?
The defects you have it's when you process something and it's not well fixated. You will see it, especially with rapid processes. You will see the formalin fixation is not completed. There are some standard times, of course, and when you read the Wick or the Bancrofts, it will give you a variation from 6 to 72 hours. So a lot of labs in Europe get their stuff in
ID, right?
in the morning, and they really are going on with their grossing and putting it straight onto their processors, and they are used to put it on in their overnight processors. And in these overnight processes, there is some formalin, and it has to become with vacuum and some temperature arising. And when you are switching over to the automation products from Sakura with the Express, and you can continuously load, what we found out, some people forget that there is some fixation needed, and then you will have some defects in your blocks, and you have to reprocess them again, or you have to recut those blocks, and that's what we meant with defects.
Thank you.
Okay.
The next question is, did you have the smaller Express? How many can you run, and how long is the run for small tissues?
As I'm now working with Sakura, I know exactly the answer, but we had the big Express, the X120. The X120 you can load with a 1-hour program or a 2-hour program with 40 cassettes every 15 minutes or every 30 minutes. When you are running the small Express, the X50, you can still load 40 cassettes, but every 40 minutes or every 80 minutes due to the protocol, to the program you choose.
And you might also want to note that you can process your smaller biopsies and your larger specimens together in the same run.
Oh yeah, that's what I always mean. You want a processor that can process everything, and not that you have to choose for a program because of the size of the specimen you want to put in. I always forget it because we think it's so normal to have one program for every specimen.
Thank you. The next question is, how do you handle sections too thick and underprocessed? Can they be reprocessed?
Like it is with your old conventional processor, of course you can reprocess it, but what you really need to do is to make sure that the specimen you put on before reprocessing is at the right size. So for the short programs, 2 millimeters, and for the longer programs, 3 millimeters. And of course, you have to get rid of the paraffin first. So put it in xylene for 30 minutes, and then maybe some alcohol or isopropanol for 20 minutes, and then back in formalin, and then you can reprocess your tissues.
Okay, thank you. The next question is the grossing done in the morning because of overnight fixation time? The grossing in my lab is done in the afternoon.
Well, when I just started to work in Rotterdam, and that's about 17, 18 years ago, we were grossing in the afternoon, and the specimen came in the morning, and we fixated it during the morning or maybe during the whole day because of the size of the specimen. When you get in a big colon of 1 meter, you want to stay in formalin for a little bit longer. And then we grossed it in the afternoon. When we bought these Express, we switched over to in the morning, and we got our stuff much more times a day in, and that's why we could do some grossing already in the morning. And I know that they are willing now to gross all the day to make the portions a little bit smaller because, well, in the morning they have a lot of amount of work. So yeah, we just grossed in the morning at now.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is, what is your block average for each histotech per day? What is the standard regarding the average blocks cut per HT on an hourly basis?
On an hourly basis, we really want, and that's normal in the Netherlands, so on, for to do about 40 blocks in 1 hour, where you just cut one height. When you are making with small biopsies to 2 or 3 heights of the block, then we came to about 25 to 30 blocks in an hour.
Okay. And what about per day?
Yeah, I would say do it times 8, but that's not true. Again, But we did in the lab about 700 blocks a day, and we studied it mostly with 2 or 3 people, staff members.
Okay, thank you. And what reagents do you use on the Express?
The reagents that you use on the Express you have to buy from Sakura. It's secret, so to say, but it's easy to handle reagents. It's 1 bottle for the X50. It's 2 bottles with the same reagents for the X120, and there is a box with paraffin with the right amount of paraffin in it, and you have to put it in the machine together, the bottles and the box of paraffin pellets, and it has a working time of 40 hours or 1,500 blocks for the Express X120 or 800 blocks for the X50 or whatever occurs first, and that's why we changed our solutions every 2 days.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is, what time in the morning do pathology assistants begin grossing?
When I worked there over there, it was 8 o'clock in the morning, and they switched now to 7:30 already, because we have some assistants that really like to work in the morning early, so that's why they start at 7:30 already.
Okay, thank you. And I believe that completes the questions for today. There was one question in regards to the PowerPoint presentation and when that will be available. It was actually included in the email that has the contact information of how to call in and the web link to join today's webinar. If you scroll down towards the middle to the end of the webinar, there's a link that says the presentation is available. If you click on that link, you are able to download it and print it out.
And
so
otherwise
please
you
do
can
so.
email me.
Yes, or if you can't do that, I can also send that to you. And we do have one follow-up question, is that she is sorry she did not understand about the length of processing time on the smaller unit. If you can just explain that a little bit more.
So again, I was sorry, there's a lot of thunder outside here. Again, can you ask the question again?
Sure. This is in regards to how long processing time is on the X50, and she didn't understand your response on what that length is on the X50.
Okay. On the X50, you have 2 retorts. One retort with the bottle and one retort with the paraffin. And when you choose for the small program, in each retort it stays for 40 minutes. So the total processing time is 80 minutes for the small program. If you are using the extended program or the long program, it is 80 minutes per retort. So 80 minutes and 80 minutes, that's 160 minutes of processing time.
Yes. So the small program on the Express, which is known as the standard program, the first run of I'm sorry. Yes.
It's the standard program for the X50. That will take 80 minutes.
Yes. That is for the first run of the day, and then every 40 minutes, another basket of up to 40 cassettes can be unloaded from the processor.
Yeah, like I did in my presentations with all those blocks that were flying in, and then you can load and load and load your Express every 40 minutes with the X50.
And we did get another question. What time does your histology staff work? Are you a 24-hour lab?
No, we're actually not. We are working from, we have one technician. She starts at 6 o'clock in the morning. All the others starting at 7 o'clock or 7:30, and we all leave at 4 o'clock in the evening.
Okay.
And other labs in the Netherlands, I know. Most labs in the Netherlands work from 7 o'clock in the morning up to 4:30.
4:30, okay. Well, thank you so much, Luke. We do appreciate your time and spending your evening with us. If you have any other questions for the audience, if you have any other questions, you can always email them directly to me, and I can forward them to Luke for answering. Thank you, everybody, for your time today. And if you haven't already done so, please register for next month's webinar. And all the CEU certificates will be sent next week via email. So be on the lookout for those. Thank you so much, and everybody have a great day.